Alan Wright looked at his expensive watch as he walked into the Golden Spoon Cafe. It was 3:17 p.m. He had spent another long morning at Westside Hospital with his son Kevin. The doctors had said Kevin was stable, but Alan never liked leaving him alone. Still, he needed coffee and a moment to breathe. The cafe buzzed with afternoon customers, college students with laptops, office workers on late lunch breaks, and a few elderly regulars filled the tables. Alan chose a small table in the corner where he could see the whole room but wouldn't draw attention. Even in his plain blue sweater and jeans, people sometimes recognized him from business magazines or tech news. Today, he didn't want to be Alan Wright, the billionaire founder of Wright Industries. He just wanted to be a tired dad. "Welcome to Golden Spoon. Can I get you something to drink while you look at the menu?" Alan looked up to see a young woman with curly brown hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. Her name tag read, Diane. She had a genuine smile that reached her eyes, unlike the practiced grins he saw daily in business meetings. "Just black coffee, please." "The strongest you have," Alan said. "Our mechanic's brew coming right up. It'll keep your engine running all day," Diane said with a wink. "Take your time with the menu. Our soup today is potato bacon and the sandwich special is turkey avocado on sourdough." As Diane walked away, Alan noticed how she stopped at each table. She remembered one student's exam was today and asked how it went. She knew an elderly man wanted his water with exactly 3 ice cubes. At another table, she gently placed a hand on a woman's shoulder who looked upset. Alan's phone vibrated. Kevin's doctor was calling. His heart jumped to his throat as he answered. "Mr. Wright?" "Kevin had a small seizure, but we've stabilized him. Nothing to worry about, but I thought you should know." "I'll be right there," Alan said, standing up quickly. Diane returned with his coffee just as he was gathering his things. "Everything okay?" she asked, concern in her voice. "My son. Hospital." "I need to go," Alan managed to say, pulling out his wallet. "The coffee's on the house. Go take care of your boy," Diane said firmly, placing the to-go cup in his hand. "Family comes first." Alan nodded gratefully and rushed out. In his hurry, he didn't notice Diane clearing a path for him through the crowded cafe or how she held the door open as he left. Back at the hospital, Kevin was sleeping peacefully. The 16-year-old boy looked small in the large hospital bed. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and his thin arms rested on top of the white sheets. Machines beeped steadily beside him, monitoring his vital signs. Alan sat in the chair next to the bed, sipping the coffee Diane had given him. Kevin had been born with cerebral palsy. His body never quite did what he wanted it to do, but his mind was sharp as a tack. Lately, though, these recurring infections had worn him down. Dr. Laura Peters had explained that the extended hospital stay was necessary, but warned Alan about the effects of isolation on Kevin's mental health. When Kevin woke up, he barely spoke. He answered Alan's questions with one-word replies, then turned to stare out the window. The doctor's warning echoed in Alan's mind. "Kevin, what would make this room better for you?" Alan asked, trying a different approach. Kevin shrugged. "Nothing, it's fine." "Come on, buddy. There must be something. A better TV, more books, different games." Kevin sighed. "I'm just tired of staring at the same walls. I miss people, regular people doing regular things, not doctors and nurses asking me the same questions every day." Alan thought about this. "You miss being out in the world." "Yeah," Kevin said quietly, "but I know I can't leave yet." Dr. Peters came in then, checking Kevin's charts. After examining him, she pulled Alan into the hallway. "His physical health is improving, but I'm concerned about his mood," she said. "Depression can slow recovery. He needs engagement with the outside world, something to look forward to each day." "He says he misses regular people," Alan said, an idea beginning to form. "That makes sense. Teenagers need social connection. It's essential for their development," Dr. Peters explained. Back in Kevin's room, Alan sat thinking as his son dozed, off again. He pulled out his tablet and began making notes. As one of the leading tech innovators in the country, Alan had resources and connections. If Kevin couldn't go out into the world, Perhaps Alan could bring a piece of the world to Kevin. He remembered the cafe he'd just visited, the Golden Spoon. It was lively, full of different people, conversations, and energy. And that server, Diane, had shown such natural kindness. Places and people like that could remind Kevin that the world was still out there waiting for him. Alan made a call to his chief technology officer. Ben, I need a small project set up. Very discreet, very secure. A private live stream from a public location to a single receiver. Can you put a team on this? 3 days later, Alan returned to the Golden Spoon Cafe. This time, he asked to speak with the owner. Margaret Chen, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair, led him to her small office in the back. Mr. Wright, I'm familiar with your work. What brings you to my cafe? She asked directly. Alan explained about Kevin, the hospital, and his idea for a secure live stream that would show daily life at the cafe to give his son a window to the world. He emphasized privacy protections, no audio recording, strategic camera placement to avoid capturing customers' faces directly, and proper signage informing people about the filming. This feed would go only to my son's hospital room. No storing, no sharing, no other uses, Alan assured her. Margaret considered this. And you chose my cafe because the atmosphere, the people, and honestly, your staff. The young woman who served me, Diane. Her kindness stood out. This place feels real, not polished and fake. My son needs to see that life goes on outside his hospital room. Margaret nodded slowly. I'll need to talk to my staff and lawyer, and I want to meet your son. A week later, with agreements signed and privacy measures in place, a small unobtrusive camera was installed in the cafe. A simple sign at the entrance informed customers about the hospital project. Most people barely noticed. When Alan showed Kevin how to access the live stream on his tablet, the boy seemed mildly interested at best. But the next morning when Alan arrived at the hospital, he found Kevin watching intently as Diane handled the morning rush, balancing trays and remembering orders without writing them down. She's really good at her job, Kevin said. It was the most he'd spoken in weeks. Alan smiled, hope blooming in his chest. Yes, she is. As Kevin continued watching, Alan noticed something he hadn't seen in months, the hint of a smile on his son's face. 2 weeks passed, and the live stream from Golden Spoon Cafe became an important part of Kevin's daily routine. Each morning he would wake up and immediately reach for his tablet to check what was happening at the cafe. The doctors and nurses noticed the change in his mood. He was more alert, more engaged, and more willing to participate in his physical therapy sessions. Alan watched this transformation with quiet joy. On this particular morning, he arrived at the hospital carrying a box of donuts from Kevin's favorite bakery. He found his son sitting up in bed, eyes fixed on the tablet screen. Morning, Dad, Kevin said without looking up. Diane just started her shift. She looks tired today. Alan pulled up a chair next to the bed and opened the donut box. How can you tell? She keeps rubbing her neck, and her smile isn't as big as usual, Kevin said, taking a chocolate donut. Also, she's wearing different shoes, flats instead of her normal work shoes. Maybe her feet hurt. Alan was surprised by these observations. Kevin had always been smart, but since the live stream began, he seemed to be developing a new kind of awareness about people. He was noticing small details, reading body language, and making connections. You've been watching her closely, Alan remarked. Kevin nodded. She's interesting. The way she handles difficult customers is amazing. Yesterday, this man got really angry because they were out of blueberry muffins. He started yelling, but Diane just stayed calm and offered him something else at half price. By the end, he was smiling and left her a big tip. Alan smiled. Social intelligence, that's what you're describing. It's a valuable skill. Is that what it's called? Kevin asked, finally looking at his dad. I think she has a lot of it. Dr. Peters came in for her morning check. After examining Kevin, she pulled Alan into the hallway again, but this time, her expression was positive. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, she said. His vitals are improving and his mood is much better. The nurses say he's been more talkative. It's the live stream, Alan explained. He watches the cafe for hours, especially when this one server named Diane is working. Dr. Peters nodded thoughtfully. Having a connection to the outside world is powerful medicine. Even if it's just observing from a distance, it gives him something beyond these hospital walls to focus on. Back in Kevin's room, Alan found his son frowning at the tablet. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Diane just got a phone call. She went to the back room, but she looked upset," Kevin said. "Dad, do you think you could go to the cafe today? Maybe see if she's okay?" Alan was surprised by the request. "Kevin, we don't really know her. It might seem strange if I show special interest in her problems. Please, Dad, just get some coffee and see if she's all right. She's always helping everyone else." Alan couldn't say no to his son's concerned face. "Okay, I'll stop by this afternoon." Around 3 o'clock, Alan walked into the Golden Spoon Cafe. It was less busy than his previous visits. Diane was wiping down a table near the window, and she looked up when the bell above the door jingled. "Welcome back," she said, recognizing him. "Black coffee, right? Mechanic's brew?" Alan was impressed that she remembered. Good memory. "Part of the job," she said with a smile. But Alan could see that Kevin was right. Her usual energy seemed dim today. There were shadows under her eyes. "Coffee to stay this time," Alan said, sitting at the counter. "How's your day going?" "Fine, thanks," Diane said automatically. She poured his coffee and placed it in front of him. As she turned to help another customer, Alan noticed her wince slightly. When she returned to refill his cup a few minutes later, he spoke up. "You know, my company has an excellent massage therapist on staff for our employees. Neck pain can be debilitating if you ignore it." Diane looked startled. "Is it that obvious?" "My son noticed," Alan said without thinking. Then, realizing his mistake, he quickly added, I noticed when I came in earlier this week." Diane sighed. "It's nothing serious, just stress. My mom's sick and I've been picking up extra shifts to help with her medical bills. Plus, my car broke down, so I'm taking 3 buses to get to class after my shift." "You're in school too?" Alan asked, genuinely impressed. "Nursing program," Diane said, a spark of pride breaking through her tiredness. "Second year. It's tough with work, but I'm managing." She glanced around the cafe. "I should get back to my other tables." After finishing his coffee, Alan left. A generous tip. On his way out, he passed Margaret's office and decided to stop in. "Mr. Wright," Margaret greeted him. "How's your son doing?" "Better, thanks to your cafe. Kevin enjoys watching the daily activity. It's been good medicine for him." Margaret smiled. "I'm glad to hear it. Did you need something else?" Alan hesitated, then asked, "What can you tell me about Diane?" "The server." Margaret's expression turned protective. "She's one of my best employees. Dependable, hardworking. Why do you ask?" "Kevin has taken an interest in watching her work. He admires her people skills," Alan said carefully. "And I couldn't help noticing she seems to be going through a rough time." Margaret's face softened. "Diane has had it hard. Single mom, raised her, worked her way through community college, now nursing school. Her mother has MS and recently took a turn for the worse. Diane never complains, but I know she's struggling." Alan thanked Margaret for the information and left, the cafe deep in thought. When he returned to the hospital, Kevin was still watching the tablet. "Did you see Diane? Is she okay?" he asked immediately. Alan sat down and told Kevin what he had learned. As he spoke, he watched his son's face grow more concerned. "We have to help her, Dad," Kevin said firmly. "Kevin, we can't just interfere in a stranger's life," Alan cautioned. "Why not? You interfere in strangers' lives all the time with your charity foundation," Kevin pointed out. "Besides, she's not really a stranger anymore. I've watched her for weeks. I know how hard she works, how kind she is to everyone." Alan was quiet for a moment, considering. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Kevin thought about it. "You could create a scholarship for nursing students. Diane could apply." "That's not a small thing, Kevin." "Neither is what she's done for me," Kevin said simply. Before we set up the live stream, I didn't care about anything. Watching her, she tries so hard every day, even when things are difficult. It made me want to try harder too. Alan looked at his son with new understanding. This wasn't just about watching people at a cafe. Kevin had found inspiration, a reason to push through his own challenges. "I'll think about it," Alan promised. As Kevin returned his attention to the tablet, Alan pulled out his phone and sent a message to his assistant. "Research nursing scholarships. I want to start a new program." Alan sat in his home office late into the night, researching nursing scholarships. His mansion was quiet except for the tapping of his keyboard and the occasional sigh as he reviewed another program that didn't quite fit what he wanted to create. He needed something that could help Diane specifically but wouldn't seem targeted only at her. That might embarrass her or make her suspicious. His phone rang, displaying the hospital's number. Alan's heart raced as he answered. "Mr. Wright, this is Night Nurse Jordan. Kevin is running a high fever and we're having trouble bringing it down. Dr. Peters is on her way in, but you should come to the hospital." Alan arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, his hair uncombed and still wearing the same clothes from earlier. Kevin was awake but clearly miserable. His face was flushed and his hair was damp with sweat. "Dad," Kevin said weakly, "I feel awful." Alan took his son's hand. "Dr. Peters is coming. You're going to be fine." Kevin closed his eyes. "Can you check the cafe feed? Is Diane working the early shift?" Even sick, Kevin was thinking about the cafe and Diane. Alan picked up the tablet from the bedside table. The cafe was dark and empty at this late hour. "It's the middle of the night, buddy. Nobody's at the cafe right now," Alan said gently. Kevin nodded, disappointed. "Will you tell me when morning comes? I want to see if she's okay." "I will," Alan promised, wondering at his son's concern for someone he had never actually met. Dr. Peters arrived and examined Kevin. "It's an infection," she explained to Alan afterward. "We've started antibiotics, but I'm concerned about how quickly his condition changed. We need to monitor him closely for the next few days." The next morning, Kevin's fever was slightly lower, but he was still very weak. True to his promise, Alan turned on the cafe feed when the Golden Spoon opened. Kevin watched through half-closed eyes as the morning staff set up for the day. "Diane isn't there," Kevin noted, his voice hoarse. "Maybe she has a day off," Alan suggested. Kevin shook his head slightly. "No, she always works Tuesday mornings. Something's wrong." At lunchtime, Diane still hadn't appeared on the feed. Kevin grew increasingly worried, which wasn't helping his condition. Alan decided to visit the cafe again to ease his son's mind. The Golden Spoon was busy with the lunch crowd when Alan arrived. He looked around but didn't see Diane. Margaret was working behind the counter, which was unusual. "Mr. Wright," Margaret greeted him when he approached. "2 visits in 2 days. I hope everything's all right with your son?" "Kevin has a fever. He's back on antibiotics," Alan explained. Actually, he noticed Diane wasn't working today and got worried. She usually has the Tuesday morning shift. Margaret's face fell. "Diane's mother took a turn for the worse last night. She's at the hospital with her now. I told her to take all the time she needs." "I'm sorry to hear that," Alan said sincerely. "Which hospital?" "Mercy General. The same as your son, I believe." Alan thanked Margaret and left. Back at Westside Hospital, he told Kevin about Diane's situation. "Her mom's here? In this hospital?" Kevin asked, suddenly more alert. "Dad, we have to help." "Kevin, this is a personal, family matter," Alan reminded him. "Just find out if they need anything," Kevin insisted. "Please, Dad." Alan couldn't refuse. After making sure Kevin was comfortable, he went to the information desk and inquired about Diane's mother. The receptionist couldn't give out patient information, but Alan was able to find out which floor she was on. On the 5th floor, Alan spotted Diane sitting alone in a small waiting area. She looked exhausted, still wearing what appeared to be yesterday's clothes. There was a half-empty cup of cold coffee on the table beside her. "Diane," Alan said softly, approaching her. She looked up, confusion crossing her face before recognition set in. Mr. Wright? From the cafe? Alan, please. I heard about your mother from Margaret. My son is a patient here too. How is she doing? Diane's eyes filled with tears. Not good. They're running tests, but the doctor thinks she might need surgery. She lost feeling in her legs last night. Alan sat down beside her. Have you eaten anything? Diane shook her head. I can't leave. What if the doctor comes while I'm gone? Let me at least get you some decent coffee and a sandwich, Alan offered. I know the cafeteria here pretty well by now. Diane hesitated, then nodded. Thank you, that would be nice. When Alan returned with food, they sat in silence for a while as Diane ate. Finally, she spoke. Your son, is he going to be okay? He has an infection, but the doctors are optimistic, Alan said. Actually, he's the one who noticed you weren't at work today and got worried. Diane looked confused. He knows me? Alan realized he needed to be careful. I've mentioned you. He knows I stop at the cafe sometimes. It wasn't a complete lie. A doctor approached them then, and Diane stood up quickly. Dr. White, how is she? The tests confirm what we suspected. Your mother needs surgery to relieve pressure on her spinal cord. It's a delicate procedure, but without it, the paralysis could become permanent. How much will it cost? Diane asked. Immediately. Dr. White looked uncomfortable. The financial office can discuss that with you, but I should warn you it's a specialized procedure, and your mother's insurance coverage is limited. After the doctor left, Diane sank back onto the chair, her face pale. I can't afford this. Even with my savings and student loans, I don't have enough. Alan watched her struggle to maintain composure. In that moment, he made a decision. Diane, my company has a medical assistance program for families in crisis. Let me make a call and see if we can help. Why would you do that? Diane asked, clearly suspicious. You barely know me. Alan thought about Kevin, about how watching Diane had given his son hope during his darkest days. Let's just say I believe in paying kindness forward. Will you let me help? Diane hesitated, pride warring with desperation. Finally, she nodded. For my mom, yes. Thank you. Back in Kevin's room, Alan found his son asleep. The tablet with the cafe feed was still on, showing the afternoon rush. Alan gently placed it on the bedside table and sat down, pulling out his phone. Ben, he said when his chief financial officer answered. Remember that scholarship program we discussed? I need to fast-track it, and I need something else too. A medical assistance fund for families with MS. Make it substantial, and I need both ready by tomorrow. As Alan hung up, Kevin stirred. Dad? Did you find Diane? Is she okay? Yes, I found her, Alan said. And no, she's not okay right now. But I think she will be. Kevin gave a tired smile. You're going to help her, aren't you? We are, Alan corrected. This was your idea, after all. Outside the window, the sun was setting, casting golden light across the hospital room. For the first time in months, Alan felt like they were both exactly where they needed to be. 1 week later, Diane stood outside the hospital room where her mother was recovering from surgery. The procedure had gone well. The doctors were optimistic that with physical therapy, her mother would regain most of the feeling in her legs. Diane still couldn't believe how quickly everything had happened. 2 days after meeting Alan Wright in the hospital waiting room, Diane had received a call from the hospital's financial office. They informed her that her mother qualified for assistance from the newly established Wright Medical Relief Fund. The fund would cover all surgery costs and 6 months of physical therapy. Diane had cried with relief, and that wasn't the only miracle. Yesterday, she had received an email announcing she was the first recipient of the Wright Industries Healthcare Heroes Scholarship. The scholarship would pay for the remainder of her nursing degree and provide a monthly stipend for living expenses. The email explained that candidates were selected based on academic performance, financial need, and demonstrated compassion in their work. Diane was certain there had been a mistake. Why would a billionaire like Alan Wright take such an interest in helping her? She had only served him coffee a few times. Something didn't add up, but she was too overwhelmed with gratitude to question it too deeply. Now, as she prepared to start her shift at the cafe for the first time in days, Diane felt like she was walking on air. Her mother was recovering, her education was secure, and for the first time in years she could focus on her studies without constant financial worry. Margaret greeted her with a warm hug when she arrived at the Golden Spoon. "Welcome back. How's your mom doing?" "Much better," Diane said, tying on her apron. "The surgery went well and she's already starting physical therapy." "That's wonderful news," Margaret said. "And I heard about your scholarship too." "Congratulations," Diane smiled. "Thanks, I still can't believe it." As she worked her shift, Diane felt lighter than she had in months. She chatted easily with the regulars, remembered everyone's orders, and even handled a small coffee spill without losing her smile. Several customers commented on how happy she looked. During her break, Diane called the hospital to check on her mother. While on the phone, she wandered through the cafe, stopping near the small camera mounted discreetly in the corner. She had almost forgotten it was there. Margaret had explained it was part of a project to help a young patient stay connected to the outside world during a long hospital stay. Diane wondered about that patient, whether watching the cafe brought them any comfort. Did they have favorite customers? Did they notice when the seasonal decorations changed? Did they watch her work? The thought made her smile, and she waved slightly at the camera before heading back to work. At Westside Hospital, Kevin was having his best day in weeks. His fever was gone, his infection was clearing up, and Dr. Peters was discussing the possibility of him going home soon. He was sitting up in bed watching the cafe feed on his tablet when he gasped. "Dad, Diane's back at work," Kevin exclaimed, "and she looks happy." Alan looked up from his laptop where he had been handling some company business. "That's great news." "She just waved at the camera," Kevin said, grinning. "I think she knows someone's watching." Alan came over to look at the screen. Diane was, indeed, back at work, moving with energy as she served customers. Her mother's surgery went well, Alan told Kevin, and she got the scholarship. "Did you tell her it was because of me?" Kevin asked. "No," Alan said. "The scholarship committee made their selection based on merit, financial need, and demonstrated compassion, all of which Diane has in abundance." Kevin looked skeptical. "But you created the committee and the scholarship because I asked you to help her." Alan smiled. "The idea came from you, yes, but Diane earned this on her own merits. She's exactly the kind of person we want to support through this program." Kevin seemed satisfied with this answer. "I'm glad. She's happy. She deserves it." That afternoon, Dr. Peters came in with good news. "Kevin, your latest tests look excellent. If things continue improving at this rate, you could go home by the end of the week." Kevin's face lit up. "Really? No more hospital?" "You'll still need to come in for physical therapy and regular checkups," Dr. Peters cautioned. "But yes, you can recover at home." After Dr. Peters left, Kevin turned to his dad with a worried expression. "If I go home, what happens to the cafe feed? Will I still be able to watch Diane?" Alan hadn't considered this. "I'm not sure. The agreement with Margaret was specifically for your hospital stay." "But I'm not completely better yet," Kevin argued. "I'll still be recovering at home. Couldn't we just move the feed there?" Alan could see how important this was to his son. "I'll talk to Margaret." Later that day, Alan visited the Golden Spoon. He waited until there was a lull in customers before approaching the counter where Margaret was working. "Alan, good to see you," Margaret greeted him. "How's Kevin doing?" "Much better," Alan said. "In fact, he might be going home soon. Which brings me to why I'm here." Margaret listened as Alan explained Kevin's request to continue the cafe feed at home during his recovery. "He's become quite attached to watching the cafe, especially Diane." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "So that's why you were asking about her, and why Wright Industries suddenly created a nursing scholarship that she happened to win." Alan had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Kevin suggested it. Watching Diane's kindness and work ethic helped him through some dark days. He wanted to give something back. Margaret considered this. Have you told Diane any of this? No, Alan admitted. I thought it might make her uncomfortable to know she was being watched. She's going to find out eventually, Margaret pointed out, especially if she ever meets Kevin. Alan nodded. You're right. I'll tell her the truth soon, but about the feed? Keep it going, Margaret said. If it helps Kevin, I'm all for it. Just promise me you'll be honest with Diane before too long. I promise, Alan said. As he was leaving, Diane returned from delivering an order to a table. She recognized him immediately. Mr. Wright. Alan, she corrected herself. I was hoping I'd see you. I wanted to thank you and your company for everything, the medical fund, the scholarship. It's changed my life. Alan smiled. You deserve it, Diane. Actually, my son is doing much better. He'll be going home soon. That's wonderful, Diane said sincerely. I've been thinking about him even though we've never met. Maybe because my mom was in the same hospital. Actually, Alan said carefully, Kevin would really like to meet you someday, when he's stronger. Diane looked surprised but pleased. I'd like that too. From what you've said, he sounds like a special person. He is, Alan agreed. And he thinks the same about you. As Alan walked back to his car, he wondered how he would eventually explain everything to Diane. How do you tell someone they've been watched for weeks? That they've inspired a teenage boy they've never met? That their daily kindness had sparked a change in not just one life, but two? Those were questions for another day. For now, he was simply grateful that both Kevin and Diane were finding their way to better days. 3 months had passed since Kevin left the hospital. He was getting stronger every day. His physical therapy sessions were down to twice a week, and he had started taking online classes to catch up on the school he had missed. The live stream from the Golden Spoon Cafe still played on a screen in his bedroom, though he didn't watch it as much as before. Today was special. Kevin sat in his wheelchair, nervously adjusting his shirt collar as his father drove them to Westside Hospital. It wasn't for a medical appointment this time. Today, Kevin would attend the official launch of the Wright Healthcare Heroes Scholarship Program, and he would finally meet Diane in person. Are you sure she won't be mad? Kevin asked his father, for the 10th time that morning. About the camera and watching her work? Alan kept his eyes on the road. I told her everything last week, just like I promised Margaret I would. She was surprised but not angry. She wants to meet you. Kevin still looked worried. But what if she's just being nice? What if she thinks it's weird? Then we'll deal with it, Alan said calmly. But I don't think that will happen. Diane understands that the live stream helped you when you were very sick. She's studying to be a nurse, remember? She cares about helping people get better. The event was being held in the hospital's main conference room. When they arrived, the room was already filling with hospital staff, scholarship committee members, and the first group of scholarship recipients. Diane was among them, wearing a simple blue dress instead of her cafe uniform. Kevin suddenly felt shy. He had watched Diane for months, knew her habits and expressions, but she had never seen him before. What would she think of him? A skinny teenager in a wheelchair? Alan seemed to sense his son's nervousness. Ready? Kevin took a deep breath and nodded. As they entered the room, several people recognized Alan and came over to greet him. Kevin waited patiently as his father spoke with them. Then he saw Diane across the room talking with Dr. Peters. She looked different somehow. Still the same person he had watched on the screen, but more real. Dr. Peters noticed them and waved them over. Kevin, you look wonderful. The fresh air must be doing you good. Kevin smiled at his doctor. I feel better every day. Dr. Peters turned to Diane. This is the young man I was telling you about, one of our longest-staying patients last year. Diane smiled at Kevin, and it was the same warm smile he had seen her give to cafe customers hundreds of times. So Kevin, your dad has told me a lot about you. He told you everything? Kevin asked, still uncertain. Diane nodded. About the live stream, watching the cafe, all of it. She pulled up a chair to sit at his eye level. I have to admit, it was a bit surprising at first, but then I thought about how boring hospital stays can be. My mom was only there for 2 weeks, and she nearly went crazy from boredom. I didn't mean to spy on you, Kevin said quickly. I just liked watching you work. The way you handled difficult customers and remembered everyone's orders. It gave me something to think about besides being sick. And then you convinced your dad to help me, Diane said, her eyes serious. That scholarship changed my life, Kevin, and the medical fund saved my mom from losing her house to medical bills. Kevin looked down at his hands. It was the right thing to do. You helped me without even knowing it. I wanted to help you back. The event began and they had to find their seats. Alan gave a short speech about the importance of supporting healthcare workers and announced that the Right Healthcare Heroes Scholarship would be awarded to 20 deserving students each year. Diane was invited to speak as the first recipient. She talked about her journey to nursing school, her mother's illness, and her plans to specialize in rehabilitation therapy. Life can change in an instant, Diane said, looking directly at Kevin as she spoke. Sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. 3 months ago, I thought I would have to drop out of nursing school to care for my mom. Today, her health is improving. My education is secure and I've made new friends I never expected. She smiled at Kevin and Alan. I've learned that kindness can come from unexpected places and that we touch lives in ways we might never realize. After the ceremony, Diane approached Kevin again. I start my clinical rotation next week, right here at Westside, in the pediatric wing. That's great, Kevin said. You'll be amazing with the kids. I was thinking, Diane said, suddenly a bit shy herself. Maybe I could stop by your house sometime. See this famous live stream setup for myself? Maybe bring you a proper golden spoon coffee. Kevin's face lit up. Really? You'd want to do that? Of course, Diane said. We're friends now, aren't we? 1 month later, Diane sat in the Wright family kitchen, helping Kevin with his biology homework. She came over once a week now, sometimes to help with schoolwork, sometimes just to talk. Kevin had finally returned to regular school part-time, and Diane was excelling in her clinical rotations. Did you see the new barista at the cafe? Diane asked as they took a break. He keeps putting the pastries in the wrong display case. Kevin laughed. Yes, and he never remembers to refill the sugar containers. It still amazed Diane how familiar Kevin was with the cafe's daily operations. The live stream still ran, though Kevin had asked Margaret to move the camera angle slightly, out of respect for the workers' privacy. Now it showed more of the cafe space and less of the staff. Alan entered the kitchen carrying a box of donuts. How's the studying going? Good, Kevin said. Diane's explaining cell division better than my teacher does. Alan smiled at them both. What had begun as a desperate attempt to connect his isolated son with the outside world had blossomed into something neither of them had expected. Not only had Kevin regained his health, but he had also gained a friend who understood what it meant to struggle and persevere. As for Diane, she had found not just financial support, but a kind of family. Her mother was now part of a support group for MS patients that the Wright Foundation had established. Diane herself was thriving in nursing school and had been offered a guaranteed position at Westside Hospital upon graduation. I have news, Alan said, setting down the donuts. The board approved expanding the Healthcare Heroes program. Starting next semester, we'll offer 50 scholarships instead of 20. That's amazing, Dad, Kevin exclaimed. Diane's eyes filled with tears. You're changing so many lives. Alan shook his head slightly. It was Kevin's idea originally. And you were the inspiration, Diane. Diane looked at Kevin with genuine affection. To think, all this happened because your dad walked into my cafe needing a cup of coffee. And because you were kind enough to notice when he needed to rush back to his son, Kevin added. Small moments can change everything, Alan said, watching the two of them with satisfaction. Outside the window, spring flowers were blooming in the garden. Kevin would be walking again soon, according to his doctors. Diane's mother had regained most of the feeling in her legs. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full of possibilities that none of them could have imagined 6 months ago, and it had all begun with a father's love, a son's observation, and a server's kindness.